This story will stay with me until I die. I still think about it a lot, and I try to consider how I could have prevented it. But to this day, I haven't figured it out. To understand me better, you need to know that I was raised with an epileptic mother, so I was conditioned from a young age to react when I heard a loud noise. It usually meant my mother was having a seizure. I moved in with my brother after I separated from my boyfriend. My brother lived on the second floor of a 3-story building. Every apartment had its own entrance to the outside, and to get to my brother's apartment, the stairs were on the outside of the building. Then to get to the 3rd floor of the apartment building, you had to enter the apartment door to access the staircase. All 3 doors had a window that you could see through. I had been there for about a month, and since I moved in, I had never heard anything from the upstairs neighbor. I saw him a few times, and we exchanged nods while passing each other, either on the outside balcony, or when we would pass each other on the stairs, but I never really exchanged any words with him or anything. Then one day, I heard a really loud thud come from the apartment upstairs. Before I could even think about it, years of living with my mother kicked in, and I ran to the door to ring the upstairs apartment's doorbell. A young teenage girl who I had never seen before opened the door. I told her who I was, and I asked if everything was okay, since I'd heard a really loud noise. She turned around and yelled for her mom. Her mother, who I had never seen before either, appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing her knee. She apologized for the noise, and told me that she had just moved in with her boyfriend, and she kept bumping into the coffee table. It looked like she felt really bad for having disturbed me, so I told her it was all good, and let her know not to hesitate if she needed anything. I don't know why I told her that. I must have felt something was off. I was proven right just 4 days later. I was awoken in the middle of the night by a really loud noise coming from the upstairs apartment. My brother had gone to his girlfriend's house for the night, so I was by myself. The noise sounded like they were moving furniture around. It was crazy. There was no way in hell I was going to ring their doorbell at 3 a.m., so I called the police and let them know something was wrong. It was strange because I usually never hear anything from the upstairs neighbor. They told me they were sending a patrol car as soon as possible, and for me to stay in my apartment. They then told me to call back if the situation changed. What happened next still haunts me. As soon as I hung up with the police, I heard thuds as if somebody was running in place, and then I heard a woman scream for help. I then realized that the noise I was hearing was probably her feet hitting the floor repeatedly while she was trying to fight back. I took the phone and called the police again, and I told the dispatcher that the lady was screaming for help. While I was on the phone with the police, the noises stopped. 4 police cars arrived within a minute. The station was only a few blocks away. An ambulance got there about a minute after them. I saw the police take my neighbor out in handcuffs. He was thrashing and screaming and trying to break away. I also saw the paramedics leave with the woman. About an hour later, the detectives came to talk to me and get my statement. I asked about the woman. She had been pronounced dead at the hospital. I started crying and told the detectives that I should have gone to ring the doorbell. Maybe it would have gotten his attention away from her. However, they told me that the guy's plan had been to kill her. He was looking for the teenage girl when the police got there. She had been hiding downstairs in the dark under the window. If I had rang the doorbell, I would have called him right to the child. Besides, I'm a 5'5" woman. The man was 6 feet tall. What more could I have done to help? The detectives tried to comfort me by telling me that I had done the only thing I could do. I had tried to help by calling the police early. They had already been en route by the time the lady lost consciousness, so I probably saved that teenager's life. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 years. Her name was Isabel. She was 29 years old when she died. 18 years ago, last month. This happened to me and my family a long time ago, when I was 12 years old. I lived in a suburban neighborhood with my parents and my younger sister Melanie. We had lived there since I was a baby, and I knew everyone on the block. That was until a new family moved in one summer. It was a mother, father, and 2 kids. The boy's name was Brian, and the girl's name was Jen. Brian was my age, and Jen was Melanie's age. We all became friends quickly, and played together every day during the summer. Eventually, the summer ended, and we had to go back to school. I was happy to introduce Brian to everyone. One day, though, we had a fight in the schoolyard. I don't even remember what it was about, but a few punches were thrown. Neither of us really got hurt, but it was effectively the end of our friendship. The other kids took my side because Brian was the new guy. Later that week, Brian's mom drove up to me as I was walking home from school. She got out of the car and yelled at me for 5 minutes straight, accusing me of bullying her son. I didn't know what to do or say, so I just stood there and listened until she left. There was no way I was bullying him. We got into a fight, that was all. I figured that he told on me, and that was super lame. Over the coming weeks, my family's house was vandalized on several occasions. Our mailbox was knocked over, we found eggs splattered on the house, and our lawn decorations were destroyed. We thought that Brian's family was doing it, but we didn't have any proof. One time, I was walking past Brian's house, and his mom came out and started yelling at me again. I told her to F off, and I tried to walk away, but she grabbed me by the arm and started pulling me towards her house. I struggled, but I was only 12 years old, and she was bigger than me. I was terrified, because I thought that lady had a few screws loose. I didn't know what she would do to me. I managed to get away, and I ran home as fast as I could. When I told my parents what happened, they were furious. They called the police and reported what had been happening. But when the police arrived, they treated it like a regular dispute and said there wasn't much they could do. We felt helpless and scared. We didn't know what Brian's family was capable of, or what they might do next. One day when I was home alone, I heard a knock at the front door. I looked through the front window and saw Brian's mom standing there with a crazed look in her eyes. She started pounding on the door and yelling at me to open it. I knew I had to do something, so I ran to the back of the house and locked all the doors and windows. I was shaking and scared out of my mind. I didn't know if she was going to break in, or what she might do if she did. Eventually she stopped pounding on the door and left. I called my parents and told them everything. They came home immediately and called the police again, and again, they didn't do anything. Things went on like this for about a year. It was a terrible time in my childhood. Brian's mom would show up at our house while my parents were away. It got to the point where we were not allowed outside when my parents weren't home. We all thought that Brian's mom was a little crazy, and my parents were worried that she was dangerous. It all ended in an unfortunate way. Brian's dad died. We never knew the details of what happened to him, but foul play was never suspected. Because of that, their family couldn't afford to stay in our neighborhood, since the mom didn't work. They were forced to sell the house and move into an apartment. Years later, I saw Brian at a party when I was in the 12th grade. We went to different high schools, but somehow we had some friends in common. We were able to move past our differences and had a decent conversation. Neither of us brought up what happened back then, though. I was especially careful to be respectful, considering how things went for Brian and his family. My neighborhood was quiet and generally considered safe, but not the friendliest place. I had a few friends among my neighbors, but there were a lot of people who I didn't know at all. There was one really weird guy. He was about 45 years old, but he lived with his parents who were elderly. Sam was about average height, but overweight. He dressed like he was a lot younger, with baggy pants and a backwards hat. My parents always told me not to talk to him, but I didn't understand why at first. He seemed harmless enough, just a little odd. Sam and his parents lived around the corner from me. There were 5 or 6 houses separating us, but his backyard backed onto ours. There was a tall wooden fence separating our yards, though. I didn't see it as weird that an older guy like that was living with his parents until I was older. Sam had a modified pickup truck that was lowered, and my friends and I actually thought it was pretty cool. We always obeyed our parents, though, and we never really talked to him. Eventually, I started to notice things about Sam that made me uneasy. He would stare at me and my friends when we were playing outside. Spend a lot of time on his driveway, working on his truck, but now that I look back, I think he was faking it. Sometimes he would make strange noises or gestures at me and my friends as we passed by. My parents continued to warn me to stay away from him, and eventually I understood why. One day when I was at home alone watching TV, I heard a strange noise from outside. Our living room was at the back of the house, and there was a gate blocking it off from the street. I got up to investigate the noise, and that's when I saw Sam. He was walking up to the window and looking in. I was stunned. Then I realized that the back door was unlocked. I quickly ran over to the door and tried to lock it, but Sam was already trying to open it. I could hear him laughing maniacally as he struggled with me. It was almost like it was a joke to him, but I was terrified. I tried to push him away, but he was too strong. His grip on the door was unbreakable. In a moan of desperation, I let go of the door and it swung open. The doorknob slammed into the wall, making a big dent that I later found. Then Sam came inside. I ran to the front of the house and out the front door. I slammed the door behind me, hoping it would slow him down if he tried to chase me. I'm still not sure if he did. I sprinted to my friend's place, and we called the cops. I was shaking and crying as I told him what happened. They came over to my house and caught Sam leaving through the back door. He was arrested on the spot. I never saw Sam again after that day. His parents kicked him out of the house after they found out what he did. I don't know what happened to him, but I was glad that he was no longer a threat to me or anyone else in my neighborhood. My guess is that he's terrorizing someone else now. Not the ideal outcome. He really should be locked up, but the charge for breaking into a house did not carry the kind of punishment that it should have. It's scary to think about what could have happened if I wasn't able to get away. I'm sure he would have done something to me. He didn't even steal anything, so it wasn't about that. It's been years since that day, but I still remember it vividly. I still get a little scared when I'm alone in that house, but I know I'm safe now. His parents are still in the neighborhood. It's pretty awkward being around them, but nobody ever talks about Sam. Everyone in my neighborhood understands that it's off limits. When my wife and I decided to purchase our first home, we decided on a nice condo in a new part of town. This was about a year ago. We were excited to start our lives in this cozy space, and the building itself seemed perfect with its charming brick facade and modern amenities. We never could have imagined the nightmare that was about to unfold. It started innocuously enough. We noticed a neighbor across the hall who always seemed to be lingering in the hallway. He was around our age. We were in our mid-30s. He had long black hair that was always tied back, and a short beard, with glasses. He dressed casually, but stylish as well. He seemed like a normal guy at first, not the type who would turn out to be such a psycho. We tried to be friendly and strike up a conversation, but he always seemed to brush us off and retreat back to his apartment. Things escalated quickly from there. We began to notice our neighbor peeking through the peephole in our door whenever we saw him in the hallway. I'm still not sure what he was trying to do, because I tried, and I couldn't see anything through that peephole from the outside. It was still creepy though, and I started to think he was a little crazy. We would often see him just standing outside our door doing nothing, just looking at the ground. It got so bad that my wife was too scared to go out when he was there. I don't even blame her. It It was really bad. We tried to confront our neighbor, but he always seemed to be elusive. Whenever we brought it up, he would simply deny it and accuse us of exaggerating. We filed a complaint with the building management, but they seemed dismissive of our concerns and told us they couldn't do anything unless we had evidence of a crime. The situation became increasingly frightening. One night, we heard footsteps outside our door at around 2 a.m. When we looked out, we saw our neighbor standing right out in front of the door, again not doing anything. I get that it's not against the law to stand in the hallway of a building where you live, but it was really weird and scary for us. We were out of ideas, so we decided to contact the police in the morning. Unfortunately, there was little they could do. One night the next week, we woke to the sound of loud banging on our door. We both suspected that it was the neighbor, and we were right. He was slamming his body into our door at full force. My wife pulled out her phone to call the police, and I pressed my body against the door to keep it from smashing off the hinges. We were both really worried that he would break it down. The police arrived while he was still slamming into the door. They arrested him on the spot for trying to break in. We never found out exactly what his problem was, but for some reason, he had a problem with us. Luckily, we never saw that guy again. He was actually renting, and when the owner of his place found out what happened, he was evicted and had to move out.